Hi, everybody. I am Tracy Malone, the founder of NarcissistAbuseSupport.com. If you are going through a relationship or trying to figure out what the hell just happened with a narcissist, go visit my website, NarcissistAbuseSupport.com. We have all of these resources and help wherever you are, whoever your narcissist is, we've got the answers for you. And hopefully we can get you some resources that will help you heal. So, today, I am talking with someone who is going to talk to us about the financial aspects of divorcing a narcissist. If you are going through a divorce with a narcissist, you probably already know that there are games being played, there's money disappearing, there are assets being hidden, there's denial. It's like financial amnesia. Like, we don't have that. I don't know what you're talking about. No, we sold that a long time ago. All of these other sort of things. Like, they also deny access to you, to money. They just oops, lost that count. Can't remember where that is. Or they open up home equity lines of credit and deplete all your equity in your house before you even know what's hit you. You have no equity coming in. Where that money went for the second loan, we don't know, but we have to learn to follow it. So my guest today is Rhonda Noordyk, and she is a financial divorce expert that sits there and works through all of the details and helps you find the money, helps you figure out what you're entitled to and what's a fair thing to ask for and how do we negotiate. So let's go welcome Rhonda and get some information so that those of you who are going through a divorce with a narcissist really understand the financial picture and what mistakes not to make. I'm definitely going to be asking her, what mistakes do survivors make? Because we all do it. I did for sure. So let's go welcome Rhonda. Welcome, Rhonda. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Tracy.
It is such an honor to have you here. And we've talked about this, and boy, you help so many people with this. Can you give my audience a little background about what you do? Because I just sort of said financial divorce person in the intro.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I am the founder and CEO of the Women's Financial Wellness Center, and I started my business 9 years ago. And really, the intention was and still is to help women navigate through the divorce process, to help reduce financial vulnerability for women, to help improve their confidence, and to change the stats. You know, that women's lifestyle goes down 41% post divorce. It's just, there's better ways. And it's just
Wow,
not
I've never
okay.
heard that before. That's horrible.
So, yeah, that's what really, at the end of the day, that's what gets me up. That's what is my life's purpose at this point in my life. And, there's a lot of different ways that we do that, but at the end of the day, it's providing education, it's providing empowerment, it's providing strategy. One of the things we'll often ask is, okay, what's your next best move? What's the next best thing that you can be doing around the financials? And that's been huge. I mean, that's been a game changer for many, many women.
Would imagine. Again, when I have clients and they're in that financial hellhole, most of them never have access to the financials. They don't know what they have. They don't know where anything is. They're almost deer in the headlights, blinded and paralyzed. Like the PTSD, just the
Yeah.
financial PTSD just stops them in their track, and they're just like, I don't know what we have, and and it's scary because if they don't know what they have, they don't know what they're entitled to, and so it really creates a fear about how will I survive if I don't
Yeah.
understand this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and I know that you see this a lot too. And a lot of it is the narrative, right, that they've been told. Like they'll say, oh, Rhonda, my husband's really smart at business, or, oh, my husband's really smart with the finances. And I'm like, and they say, I'm really smart, but I'm like, there's no buts, right? Like, yeah, you're smart. There's no question. The question really is, what's missing? Is it you need more knowledge? Is it mean you need more experience? Or in my preference, you need both? Because, if you have the knowledge without the experience, it's theory. If you have the experience without the knowledge, it's trial and error. And who wants to be doing, but when we get those two things working together, women make really good decisions, and they have the confidence to really kind of stand their ground in a way that's respectful and setting those boundaries and really showing up as their best self when it comes to those difficult conversations around money.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have had many clients with narcissists. We've talked about this. So what are the strategies that you most see narcissists using in the financial aspect of the divorce?
Yeah, there's a couple of them, and I'm a big acronym person, so I'm always like, how can we summarize this in the way that everybody's like, yeah, I get it. So the first thing that I see is they implement what I call the DAM method. And it's they dodge the disclosure, so they just avoid, they dodge. They avoid getting the financial disclosure filled out or the financial affidavit. The A is they avoid getting assets valued. Oh, that business, it's not really worth anything. Oh, my, classic car. Oh, that thing, the trailer, the boat. I mean, all the stuff suddenly now becomes, doesn't have much value in their mind. And then the M is misrepresenting information. So there's a lot of times when we'll ask for something, the attorneys will ask for something and they get bits and pieces. They get one piece of the statement. They get a 700-page file with a bunch of random things in it that somebody's got to try to go through and weed out what do we have, what's missing. And it just delays the process, it delays the transparency, and it's just all part of the games that they play.
So when they delay all of this, and mine never gave his financials in 7 trials, and he was in contempt 6 of them, and then he brought 3 papers, like, and the judge is like, fine, whatever, I already have hers, you could have just copied hers, right? I mean, the delay is out of control, and nothing ever happens if they get in contempt for this stuff. So it is the game to just slow the drip down, and wear you down to the point where, you know what, it's fine. Whatever it is, let's just make this go away. And they settle and they jump away from, again, the trailer, the classic car in the garage, the things that, oh, they're nothing. Don't worry about it. So what do you see in that arena?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the strategy around how to address that, right, is, we always need to be thinking, yeah, how do we gather that information? And I think the tricky part is you're right. I mean, as much as we want to think that there's going to be that accountability from the court system, most often there isn't. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never had any of my clients whose husbands ended up in jail because they didn't actually disclose their financials.
Mhm.
If anybody listening that's happened, please reach out to me or Tracy because we want we want to have a conversation.
Underneath the unicorn.
Right. I mean, right, exactly. Like, really? And so I think, there's a couple things that people can do. I mean, a lot of times, and again, I mean, there are a lot of really good attorneys, but at the end of the day, there are some that are like, oh, well, they just keep asking. Hey, they just keep asking for the same documents. They keep asking and asking and asking. And it's like, okay, well, how do we think that suddenly now something's going to change? We've asked. It's kind of like bad parenting, right? You ask your child to do something, they don't do it. Do you just keep asking, or do you say, okay, we need to change strategies? So the next phase would be doing interrogatories. And I'm sure that you were privy to all of this stuff as you were going through yours. But, the next step in the process typically is those interrogatories. And my role in that is not to write the interrogatories, but to review them. So when the attorneys put that list together, the question is, what are we asking them? And one of the things that I have found to really identify that is the answers we get on the questions are only as good as the questions we're asking. So I had a client whose husband, very successful in the financial industry. He's
Mm.
an advisor. So he, thinks he's super smart. And so at the end of the day, they put together the interrogatories. But if we were just to send it, like if the client was just to sign off on it without like maybe having me look at it, what would have happened was they say, well, give us all of the documents from the last 20 years and give us all of the. Nobody's going to do it because I feel like it's too overarching and we don't even really know what we're asking for. We're just putting this big blanket, question out there in hopes we get something. So one of the ways that we've addressed that is I actually work with a private investigator that actually will do an asset search. So we have a whole process on what that looks like, but my clients can submit a form, give us a baseline of information that they know. And then we have the private investigator go and do his work. Then he sends me the report, the summarized report with all of the supporting documentation. Then when we get the interrogatories, and I'm like, okay, well, on here we see that there were 2 properties in Utah. Oh, there's this LLC that we don't know about. We now can say, tell us about such and such LLC. Tell us about this part. We now can dial it in. So now if he's lying, we have the documentation to say there's actually a deed for that property with your name on it. Like, what the heck? So it really has allowed us to be able to dial that in. The other thing is, for my client whose husband is a financial advisor, I was in the financial industry for over a decade. I know what questions to be asking. So I went back and I said, can we ask specific questions about his compensation? What's his asset mix? How does he get paid? What? And so we were able to, and I went to the website for the company. And so I knew exactly what questions to be asking so that we're not kind of like just glossing over, how that works. And in that role, a lot of times we have to determine, the business part. Are they a business owner? Are they a 1099 employee? Are they a W-2 employee? Like what kind of category do they fall under? Because it depends on what questions we ask. But it was crazy, crazy effective, because you know what questions to ask. And then, of course, the follow up to that is we get the interrogatories back. And then the question for the attorneys is, how are you going to use this information to continue to move forward? If they don't get the answers they need, or they feel like they need to take it one step further, then they'll sometimes explore doing depositions, which is getting, the party in the room with a court reporter. But again, I mean, my question is always, if we do that and we get some information, how are we going to use the information? The question always is, then what? But those are some of the strategies. And Tracy, I always feel like, I think the best visual is, running up the down escalator. I mean, that's really how I feel like I spend most of my day, right? But we're making strides. We are making traction. We are getting to the top, even though we feel like we've had to use all of our might to get there. It's working. And how I know that it's working is, since I started my company, I've been able to move $20 million into the hands of women that literally would have been left on the table.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's So I know that these strategies work. And
Mhm.
I know that we're challenging the paradigm, and I know we're asking the tough questions. I had an attorney tell me once, Rhonda, you're being a pain in the ass. And I'm like, well, you can call me whatever you want, but I need you to get this information. And what happened there was, husband was saying he didn't have the information and he didn't have a pension. I'm like, I know the company he worked for. I know they had pensions at that timeline when he worked there, even though they don't have them anymore. That he had it. And so the attorney said, the divorce was final. And I was like, I can't sleep. So I ended up having him go to the company, get I said, he can say he doesn't have one, but we don't have any proof that he doesn't. So can we get a letter from HR that says he indeed does not have a that he doesn't have a pension? No, they came back and said he has a pension. And so what then needed to happen was that pension needed to be qualified domestic relations order, split at the company level, so that if something happened to him and he passed away prior to the payout, that she would still get her portion. That was 120 grand.
Mhm.
That was, multiple years ago, and I'm sure it's gone up since then. But those are the kinds of things that, are so important. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's really making a difference, is just asking the tough questions. But it's not easy. I mean, I will definitely say that.
It's not easy, and I think every adventure, it's like a new adventure, a new sleazeball in the arena,
Yeah.
to sit there and twist it another way, and to, have absolutely no conscience, to sit on a stand and say, for example, my husband, I had the statements from a Swiss bank account that he was half owner with, $5 million, and on the stand, him and his mother and his father, who were also on that second half, stood there and went, yeah, we don't have that anymore. We closed it. Well, where's the money? We don't know. And that was the end of it. Judge was like, sorry, it's in Switzerland and we would have no way to do anything about it. So let's just take that off the table. And I was like, but I have the statements. You can't make this shit up, right? So when they are, they just bring another level. Each one of them is, this guy's crookedly doing it this way and this one is doing it that way. And while I do know that there are women narcissists, the financial piece is often more men, and their entitlement comes into, this is my money, not yours. And then they lie to the court and they get in no trouble. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, we don't have that. Or, oh yeah, that rental property, that's been sold for years. But then you go and you check the deed and no, it's still in his name, right? So there's so many things and different journeys that these guys can take you financially on. I wanted to ask you, what is the difference between you and a lawyer? Because you're giving advice to the lawyer, and from what I see is they barely know how to use a calculator. They are not financial people. They are not doing your best interest. Can you talk to that for a second?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that's one of the tricky parts, right? Is a lot of times people will say, "Well, Rhonda, if they're in the midst of it and they haven't been down that process very far, it's like, hey, I've got an attorney, and aren't they supposed to be doing, what you're doing?" And I always tell people there's some key things that as we're going through the divorce process that everybody should be doing um, from a procedural standpoint. There's a couple key milestones, right, as we're going through the process. No matter what state you're in, there's some key kind of milestones. And so we're all kind of like reading out of the same hymnal, if you will, but one of us is an alto and one's a soprano. We're not singing the same key. We may be looking at the same information, but I'm looking at it through the lens of the financial aspect, and the attorneys are looking at it through the lens of the legal aspect. I think the confusing part is a lot of times the work that the attorneys are doing is they are crunching the numbers in a sense of, looking at, hey, here's what the law says about it. Typically, though, their advice that they're giving is not, sometimes they'll just have a blanket statement, or they will, I think people are looking to their attorney to give them advice
Mhm.
around the finances. And at the end of the day, they really aren't. Like, should I sell the house? Well, yeah, I mean, you can't afford it. Do you know how many stay-at-home moms I've worked with that they've been able to keep the house? It's a matter of the details, making sure that the numbers line up, knowing when to do what, that it is possible for stay-at-home moms to keep the house if there are a few things in place and if the numbers make sense. I will never tell somebody you can't keep it. Let's run the numbers, let's do our homework and see. And so I think that sometimes they kind of get caught up in that the generalities
Yeah.
of things, or like, this is always how we do it. Well, okay. If that was the case, though, and you have five different judges on a case and you get five different answers, we know there's room for negotiation on literally everything. And it's the interpretation of it. So I'm in the details, I'm in the weeds as it relates to the financial aspects, whereas the attorneys are advising on the legal.
Yeah.
And
And
ideally,
yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and ideally, right, we're working together as a team. I mean, that's when I feel like the clients who have the legal and financial working together in tandem, that is when people feel like, oh my gosh, I get it now.
Mhm.
Because it is subtle sometimes, right? Like, one of the things I will do with my clients is, we'll put together a current and projected budget. I always say nobody likes to do it. It's not sexy, it's not glamorous, but it's so important when it comes to the negotiations. I'm helping organize and gather the documents. Well, part of that is because I want to use that time to help educate my clients around what they have. If we're looking at a statement, I can say, okay, let's just take a micro moment and look at this. Do you know what this is? And so I can use those moments while we're touching the documents, right? To be able to help them. And then, as we get down the path a little bit, that's where the strategy comes in. There's been so many times I've been in a mediation, or I've been in meetings with attorneys or meetings with clients where I'm like, okay, they want to just do, let's just say 50-50 across the board, but you told me that really you're concerned about retirement. So is it possible for you to take some more retirement? What if you took more of this one? Right? It doesn't have to be just we're going halvesies all the way down the middle. We can look at the whole picture. Or there's been plenty of times where I said, listen, both of you are pre 59 and a half, you in particular. The way that they have this structured right now, you have no cash. You have a house that you can't use to pay the bills, and you have retirement that you can't access till 59 and a half. Okay, we got a 10-year window here. What are we doing? Right. And so we can go back and negotiate, some of those pieces based on what their goals are. And it's been very, very effective.
And that's exactly what everyone needs. But here's the thing, and I know it's going to be a question. You know where I'm going is well, why would I pay someone to do that when I'm paying my lawyer $500? And I know for a fact that you and people like yourself save them way more than it costs them. So tell me, like, again, about the financial costs and how it does save them money. And again, you're getting that stay-at-home mom, her house, that's worth something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I always tell people like the divorce isn't free. Okay, we know that much, right? I always look at it two things. One is if I can help clients better understand their financial situation, get their documents organized, that right there is saving them money. So by the time I've been working with them, right? And we share the file with the attorney they're working with, that stuff is organized. So they're not having to pay the attorney to go through and organize all the documents and understand all the pieces. They will already have done that. The other part of it is it helps clients know more clearly what they want, what's important to them. So I have a client right now who's actually in Minnesota, and we had gone through, we were working through some stuff over the last couple of months. She just went to get ready to file, met with the attorney, shared with him, kind of where she was at with stuff. And he was like, holy smokes, you're totally organized. You know what you want. You've got confidence. That was not the case when we first started working together. And so he was totally impressed. Like, that's ideal because then at that point, the attorneys can step in and do their job. They're not tracking down documents. They're not, doing any of that. They're just able to step in and hit the ground running. So it's done a lot in that regard. I did early on in my business, and quite frankly, I haven't done this for quite some years, but I interviewed people that didn't hire me. So I called them and I'm like, hey, listen, I know that you went through the process and you decided to do this without me. How much did it cost? What was, would you be open to sharing? And they were happy to share.
Mhm.
And then I went back and I talked to the people that had worked with me. And I knew that I was saving my clients at least half on
Mhm.
legal fees. Um, so, again, each situation's a little different, but then the other flip side of it is, what are they getting on the back end? Are they getting a better settlement? Am I able to move the needle? Um, and the answer is yes. Like, yes, yes, yes. I'll give you a quick example. So I was working with a client who I started working with her, and I'm sure you probably see this sometimes too, but they go MIA. And I don't see this very often, but this gal, she had started a new job, she had just moved, she was just overwhelmed. We had reached out several times via email and phone, and we just weren't hearing back. And I was really starting to get concerned, right? Like, at that point, they're kind of in a dark place, right? So I'm like, well, you know what? We're here when you're ready. So she reaches out, Rhonda, I need to get in your calendar, ASAP. So we move some stuff around, we get her in, and I find out that between the time that she stopped responding to us, she had gone to mediation. Now she had an attorney, husband had an attorney. They went to mediation, 4 hours. And I was like, okay, tell me about that. Well, she had agreed during the mediation to not take maintenance. And I was like, why did you do this without me? Oh my gosh. Like I said, I go to mediations with my clients. I pay, they charge per hour. I charge per hour for me to be in there. It would have been $1,000. I don't know, $1,000 to have me in there. She almost signed off on a $50,000 maintenance buyout. And I was like, thankfully, we were able to intercept it because she hadn't signed. But had she signed,
Game over.
Tracy, no words, right? And again, it's her choice, but that's the kind of stuff I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Like, we can't be doing that stuff. I want to be part of those conversations because I want to make sure that we're looking at all the pieces. So then what happened was I hopped on the call. I said, we need to get on the phone with the attorney. I know the attorney. He's not a bad attorney, right? But he was not looking at it from a financial perspective. And I said, okay, did you run the support calculations for maintenance? Yeah. Can you help me understand where that came in? Well, the buyout number was 50 to 80,000. I'm like, okay, well, why is that not accounted for? Why is she not taking more property division as a result of the maintenance buyout? And he goes, well, because we spent 4 hours in mediation and she said she didn't want to. Like she said she signed up, she was basically agreeing to not take it. And I'm like, well, I'm not okay with that. And he goes, well, neither am I, but she agreed to it. I'm like, oh no, this is not happening. So he ended up then sending an email to her husband's attorney and kind of reiterating, building back in the maintenance buyout, sent a message, didn't hear anything. I'm like, can you reach back out to him? Like, so he reached out again. Oh, the attorney said they didn't get the email, right? Like all this kind of stuff that happens. Um, Long story short, I just was able to review from a financial perspective the final agreement, made sure that all that stuff was in there. I still had a series of additional questions. Where's he going to get the money from for the buyout? What if he can't refinance? Like there's all these questions that I'm like, there's still open-ended questions. And we're 2 days away from signing she's 2 days away from signing the document. But that being said, that's what I'm doing. Like You know, the attorneys have a really important role, and I have a lot of respect for them. But there's stuff that gets left on the table that's impacting women post-divorce big time, and I'm committed to helping change it. You know, literally one person at a time, one one escalator at a time.
One lucky person at a time, because they're getting you and the other ones aren't. And the people who do not do this and it sometimes can't afford it, or sometimes just don't see the point, or their lawyers are like, we got it, don't worry, and they just shove them away. They do get the raw deal. And when you're with a narcissist, nothing is out of bounds. It is all, all hands on deck to destroy their victim, to financially take you down, to make sure you don't have anything. And again, if your lawyer is not a financial advocate for you, they're just gonna, oh, 4 hours, we were already there for 4 hours. Oh, I mean, really? You got paid, didn't you, dude? Like, come on, help these people. And
Yeah,
for you and I, who help their soul and their healing and their understanding of what's going on, and you're helping them with the financial part, it puts together a team that gets them healed faster, makes
yep,
them feel safe, and gets them more money on the table. And that's
yep,
such an important thing. I got one last question. Do you have time
yeah,
for that?
I do. Thank you. Yeah.
Last question is, what kind of mistakes do you most often see victims make when they are going through this financial process?
Mm, that's a heavy one, right? A good question, but an important one.
Yeah.
So I would say the thing that I see most often is where there's a couple levels to this, but basically not trusting, right, their intuition.
Mhm.
Um, Not asking the right questions. And ultimately feeling like they still want this to be a collaborative, and I say collaborative, not big collaborative, but like a working together type process. So there's sometimes where I will tell clients, listen, we're going to be working on some things, and I'm going to really suggest that you keep some of this stuff close to the vest. We're going to be gathering information. You're going to maybe be engaging the private investigator. You're going to have to keep secrets. And I know that feels awkward. I know that you feel like you're being dishonest. You're not.
Mm.
Because if you come in, oh, hey, I thought we could do this, and I thought we could do this, and I'm really, they still want there to be this collaborative approach and conversation. And that's where I think they end up getting in trouble, because then that gets used against them. So keeping it close to the vest until if and when it's time has been something that
Mm.
I have very much encouraged people to do. So that would probably be, at the top of the list of things that I see.
Yeah, there's one that I wanted to put in there based on your last example of the client. Is I see people go to mediation without knowing any numbers. It
Yep.
is like such a huge problem. Well, we'll get in there and we'll figure it out when we're there. And I'm like, no, you're not going to spend 8 hours sitting there going, where's that the retirement account? Oh, you forgot it. Like, you have to have the information in front of you, and you have to know that it's actually the right one in order to really be able to negotiate. Do you see that as a problem as well? Just going in there, and again, you're already helping the people, so you're not seeing the ones I see that don't get the help.
Yeah, it is. And I think, the mediation piece of it, right, certainly is one of those things where people do have high expectations for just really being able to get along, or to be able to collaborate, or to be able to do those things. But you don't want to be spending your time trying to figure out, what's in what account. Um, and I think at the end of the day, the other piece of it is, we as women, right, definitely need to kind of build that muscle of negotiation. And there's some really great ways to do that. And, there's a quick acronym that I use. It's called ANOT, ANOT, acknowledge, start with something of gratitude. Naturally, I is the N. So what is it that you want? Obviously, you fill in the blank. And then they ask, what are you asking for? And it just kind of gives women that ability to start moving in the direction of articulating what they want, acknowledging what that other person wants, and then what are they asking for? And, those are the kinds of things that women have the opportunity as they're going through this to build that muscle for. So yeah, it's Mediation's a tricky one, but we have had them be successful. And the final thing I'll say with that is making sure you've got the right mediator. You know, a lot of times people will suggest, oh, we use a retired judge. Okay, you need somebody who's got solid negotiation skills, that can see through the BS, that can, bridge that gap and isn't going to be participating in playing the games. And sometimes the judge is like, well, here's what the law says. What do you want to do? It's not actually helping close the gap. And that's not really helping facilitate those negotiation skills. So that's usually when I'm looking for an attorney assisted mediator. Those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for, to make sure that we're positioning for success.
Wow, I love that judge tip. I never heard that. And I have so many clients. Oh, we got this special judge and he's retired and he's going to help us. And I never thought of the downside of that. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. So I have one more thing to add about the cost of a service like you. And I say this to clients. How much did you spend on your wedding dress? How many times did you wear it? Right? We think of, our wedding. We have this big $20,000 wedding and it's going to cost you $100,000 to divorce, right? But when you think about it in terms of how often did you use that? And again, that lasted one day. Negotiating your financial future is for the rest of your life. And if you are on the older scale of it, this is your retirement. This is everything you need to know. And if you were a stay-at-home mom, you need your fair shake because you did work regardless of what the narcissist says. So, I really encourage people to look you up. How do people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two ways. One is I have a podcast called Divorce Conversations for Women. So that's on all the channels. And then Instagram is my name at Rhonda Noordyk. And then my website, wfwcdivorce.com. And there's certainly an opportunity on the website to take the quiz. And the quiz is, what is your next best move?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a
Thank you.
really great interview, and I know it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Wasn't she great? Uh, when I have clients using her or other people that are in the financial industry, boy, their divorces are so much easier. Boy, they find money. And you know what? It ends quicker because you're like, she was giving us those examples of, you know what? Let's not go for the last 10 years of everything, because not only do you have to like look at that, review it and analyze it, or would they even give it to you? It's just going to delay things. But specifically, you know what? This would be helpful. That would be helpful. And the more you put together these numbers, the smarter and better you're going to be in the divorce process. So please reach out to Rhonda, see how she can help you, and see if there's something in there that can maybe help you save that house or get what you are looking for. And if you don't even know what you're looking for, what are you entitled to? Talk to her, talk to someone, and just start the ball rolling. Again, like the price of the wedding dress, you know what? It's an investment, but it is your future. And if you're going to fight for this much and pay that much, or you're going to fight for this much and pay a little bit more, to have somebody in your corner that's going, do this, don't do that, don't sign that, do that. This is, again, we think that this is what a divorce attorney does. And sometimes they do, but most of the time, not so much. So let's do this right for you. And I will see you on the other side. This is Tracy Malone. If you are looking for help through your divorce, I am the author of Divorcing Your Narcissist. You can't make this shit up. And you can find my books and all of my 32 journals on Amazon. So I look forward to seeing you again. And if you need some coaching or some help, I'm here as well. Visit my website, narcissistabusesupport.com. See you there. Thank you.